Yeah, what's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Prison Break Raw. I'm your host, the one and only Big JD. Go ahead, get this channel, subscribe, share, leave some messages or comments, hit the thumbs up for the like, hit that notification bell to be informed on all episodes when they drop. And most importantly, if you enjoy this video, feel free to share it. Sharing is caring. Share it to your family, your friends, your coworkers, anywhere and everywhere on your social media platforms. Let's get this raw and uncut material out there to the millions that don't know we're here. Yeah, so you read the title right. You wake up and find out that your cellie is dead. Dead. You don't know how he died. You don't know when he died. You don't know how long he's been laying there dead. All these things, these feelings, emotions, thoughts are going through your head. You don't know what to do. You start to panic. You start to wonder if you're going to get blamed for it. And in some cases, some people are responsible for it. I have a personal experience with this, and I've also observed several other situations where this has occurred. What happens? What are the protocols? What do they do? And what is usually the outcome in these situations? Many different things could be the ending result. Could be all bad for you. You could be framed for a murder that you didn't even commit. This experience right here, early 1990s, LA County Jail, 2800. 6-man cell with 7 people in this cell. 7 people. Normally, when you have a 6-man cell with 7, 8, 9 people in it, you got a lot of people sleeping on the floors, and then you got the one guy that's smart enough to devise a hammock. So you got 2 rows of bunks. 1, 2, 3, 4 on one wall, and you got 2 on the other. The toilet behind you and the phone right on the side of the toilet. Usually the 2 bunks that are on the opposite wall from the 4 has a hole that's cut into the fab, the metal. You can tie a knot, your blanket, your sheet into a knot through there and run it to the bars and make a hammock, and you could sleep in that hammock and be up off the floor so you ain't a victim to the nibblings of Freeway Freddy or roaches or anything else that may be on that ground, scabies, MRSA, God knows what's on that damn floor. It's a dirty, filthy place. So here we are. You got 3 African Americans in the cell. You got me. You got 2 paisas that are in there. And then you got some other white dude. Right? Next thing you know, here comes the 8th man. We knew we were going to get an 8th guy sooner or later, but this cat right here came in not the greatest shape in the world. He was beat up. Don't know how he got beat up. Don't know when he got beat up. All I know is his eye was busted shut. His lip was busted. He had some blood up around the collar of his smock, and he was holding on to the bars, kind of woozy and looking a little drunk, head moving around, huffing and puffing. Looked to be about maybe in his 40s at the tops, probably his early 50s. African-American dude. Huffing and puffing and breathing, holding on to the bars like they were the only thing holding him up. Door opened up, he walked in. The 3 dudes that were in there were like, damn, bro, what happened to you? And he's like, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to go to sleep. I just want to go to sleep. He walks straight over to the toilet, throws up. Flushes the toilet, wrenches off his mouth a little bit, sits on the toilet. The one dude already went into nurturing mother nurse mode on his ass. Was up there with a towel trying to, give it to him here, wipe your face up a little bit. You know what, bro? I'm going to go ahead and give you my bunk, man. You go ahead and take that bunk right there. I mean, this dude was like dragging his fucking mattress in there. He couldn't even... It was all bad, man. It was all bad, and so he lays down in that bunk. He wraps himself up in his sheet, didn't take none of his clothes off, shoes off, anything like that. And that was the last we heard of him. And this was early in the evening. The lights haven't really totally gone off yet. It was still loud as fuck in there. And that was that. So by the time we had all gone to sleep and woke up in the morning, when breakfast was rolling around, the trustees would bring you your trays. It would be in these big brown trays, and they would stack up on top of each other like that, like blocks connecting like Legos. They would pull one off, give it to you, pull another one off, pull another one off. Sometimes they were light tan color, but these ones were brown this day. I still remember the color of them trays, and don't ask me how, but fine little details that you just don't forget. So they're looking over at dude, and they're like, say, bro, you all right, man? You chow time, your breakfast is here. He didn't move, he didn't get up, he didn't say anything, he didn't stir, he didn't fart, he wasn't breathing, nothing. Right? So they took his tray, and they set it up on top of the top bunk, where another cat was sleeping, and he just pulled his mattress back, said this, he goes, yeah, you keep it up here, I'm not going to sleep for the rest of the day. Was laying there for hours and hours later. Next thing you know, lunch rolls around. Here comes the trustees again with the trays. They're like, man, hey, your breakfast is getting cold, and now here's your lunch. Didn't wake up again, so they just set that lunch tray on top of the other one. Finally, dinner rolls around, and still not a sound, no stirring, no moving, nothing. This fool hasn't moved or anything. I'm already starting to suspect that something ain't right with this guy. He's either in a deep coma or he's dead. But I can't really say nothing because it's not my people, so it's not really my place to speak on it at all. But these three cats that are in there are in the back, up against the wall by the toilet, talking like, you know, well, what should we do, man? I mean, should we wake him up? Should we tell him? In prison and in jail, you don't want to touch another man ever. You just don't want to do it. If somebody's sleeping, you don't want to shake him and wake him up. You don't want to touch him. You may knock on the bunk a little bit, but for the most part, people don't touch another man. I've seen this happen where somebody pushes somebody, shakes their leg. This dude gets up and just starts firing on him. You know what I mean? And it's just usually a good rule of thumb to just leave somebody alone when they're sleeping. Don't touch them. Don't anything. You could tap on the bunk, like I said, or you can get close to him and say, hey, say, man, hey. You know, it's chow time, it's count time, it's this time, it's that time. We're going to the roof, we're going to the yard, we're going here, we're going there. They're calling your name for release. That's usually the one that gets everybody up. But then you better make sure that they are calling that person's name for release, because if you throw that out there and get their hopes up and they find out they ain't going nowhere, they may turn around and just start whooping the dog shit out of you. But I've seen people do that. Hey, man, they're calling your name for release. Dude jumps up, starts putting his shirt on, looking around, grabs the bars. Yeah, I'm here. I'm ready to go. Everybody laughs. In a situation like this, they were a little more cautious because he had already come in beat up. We don't know how he got beat up. We don't know if he got beat up downstairs by the deputies. We don't know if the cops beat him up on the street. Somebody else beat him up somewhere along the line. But he was beat up. And lunch came around, nothing. Finally, dinner time came around, still no response. And that was when they were just like, fuck it, man. We're going to have to fucking shake this dude, touch him, do something with him. Dude went to shake him and touch him and pulled the sheet back and looked at him and said, hey, man, I think this fool's dead. Finally took that long to dawn on everybody. Now they're yelling through the bars, deputy, man down over here, cell 8, man down. Nobody's coming. Nobody's coming at all. And they even had told the trustees during when that dinner tray came, said there's something wrong with this cat right here. I think he's sick. I think he needs a doctor. Finally, a deputy rolled by, and they stopped him, and they said, hey, man, there's something wrong with this cat. He may be in a coma. He may be dead, but he hasn't moved, and here's all his trays. Look at his trays. Well, the only thing the deputy said was, well, you're not supposed to have them trays in there. Go ahead, kick those out the door right now. They're like, but this man's dead right here, or he's sick, or he's in a coma or something. He's like, kick the fucking trays out now. So they're sliding his trays out, getting rid of his food, and then the deputy's looking at him and says, hey, get up. He's yelling at the guy. He's tapping and beating on the bars with his stick and all that, and this guy is not moving, not doing anything. Finally, he shines a light in his face and says, well, how do you know he's dead? Are you a fucking doctor? And, you know, you're not a doctor. Well, he needs medical attention or something like that, and he's just looking at him. He's like, hold on a minute, I'll be back. He comes back about 45 minutes, maybe an hour later. I don't know. There's no clock in there, so you don't know what time it is. He comes back with a sergeant. Sergeant looks down at him, looks at the rest, and he goes, what'd you guys do to him? And that's the first thing that this sergeant said. What did you guys do to him? Everybody's like, you guys, we didn't do shit, man. You brought this fool in here like that. You should have taken him to 60-50, to the medical mod, whatever it was. But he came in, beat up like that, and now he ain't waking up, and it was just a big, giant ordeal, man. People are yelling all up and down the block. screaming and yelling and hollering, do something about it, do something about it. They did something about it. They took us all out of there in cuffs. Took us downstairs to the holding tank, and there we sat for what seemed like an eternity. Waiting, wondering what the outcome was going to be, if he was really dead or if he was just in a coma, what the case was. Next thing you know, an internal investigator is pulling us out one at a time, questioning us about this murder. And the first thing that I said was, I don't know what you were talking about, murder. Nobody touched that man. He came in there like that. And they're like, well, he was pretty beat up, man. He had a lot of blood on him and he had a lot of injuries on him that were consistent with a cell fight of some sort. You didn't see anything. You don't know anything. And they weren't really like targeting me. They were hoping that I was going to snitch on somebody so that they could point this body at somebody. And I'm just like, man, you're talking to the wrong guy. I don't know. He's like, well, how about we charge it with you? How do we know that this dude wasn't trying to take your bunk? You know, white boy trying to take your bunk? How do we know you didn't beat him up? He was trying to take your bunk, and now you're the murderer. I'm like, look, man, I want a lawyer if you're going to be charging me with anything like that. And he's like, no, you don't need a lawyer. Go on, get out of here. Go back to the holding tank. They took me out of there. Finally, after hours and hours and hours, they had moved us all around to various different places. We never heard nothing back, but obviously the man was dead. It was a scary thing, wondering what's going to happen to you, but always the protocol and the procedures are usually the same. They are going to investigate you. They're going to look at you, especially in a case like that. Unless, of course, your cellie is like real old, there's no injuries or anything on him, and he just dies. But this situation right here, much different. Guy came in beat up. Another one that I have seen is in the state prison system where there was a man who decided to commit suicide in the middle of the night. So he was on the bottom bunk. His cellie was on the top bunk. And this guy just straight cut his throat open. Let all the blood leak out and everything onto the back wall. I mean, the COs can walk by 1,000 times with the flashlight in the middle of the night and not even know anything. But how can you not see a whole fucking puddle of blood that is pooled up down on the bottom, that is run down the wall, and is pooling in the middle of the cell? Because this is exactly what it was. I had direct view shot down at this cell. This cat wakes up, take a piss or something like that, turns on the light, starts screaming, beating on the door, screaming. We're all getting up. Everybody's waking up, looking around like, what the fuck is going on? This dude is pounding his coffee mug. Pap, 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 pap on the door, and that shit is loud. If any of you have ever been in one of them 270, 180, those new prefab designs prison in California, you know what I'm talking about. When you beat that cup on that door, it is loud. This fool's screaming and yelling and hollering and just in a panic. So they all come to the cell, they look down there, and next thing you know, they hit the alarm. And they're all running down there. All the COs are running down there, and they're gathered around the cell looking down. They finally tell them to turn around. They cuff them up and take them out. They swing the door open. There's a puddle of blood right there. You could clearly see it. I could see it from my cell. Me and my cell are looking at it like, what the fuck happened? So they investigated this cat for murder, but come to find out this dude had killed himself. He killed himself in the middle of the night. He cut his jugular out and just let the blood flow. Happens like that sometimes, man. I've seen other situations where people have had an older cellie and he just dies in his sleep. They wake up in the morning and their cellie don't get up, and they're beating on the door, or when the doors crack, if you're on a main line, you're not in reception, the doors crack, he's automatically going down there to that program. The tell the COs that this man's gone. And they go up there and they'll probably detain him for a little while until they determine the cause of death. And that's usually the case with all of these deaths that happen in these cells. If somebody dies in the cell with you, you are going to be the prime suspect for the beginning, for the first minute. And then what happens from there is anybody's guess. Whether you be charged with a murder, whether they can't figure out the cause of death, they find out it's natural causes, you may be off the hook. But Lord forbid your cellie should choke on something. Lord forbid you're on the bottom bunk and your cellie gets trying to get off the top bunk, falls, hits his head, and dies. That may be your ass. I used to trip out on that all the time. Like if I had cellies that were having trouble getting up and down up the top bunk, I would just give them the bottom bunk. Because I'm not going to be in a situation where that man falls and breaks his neck. Guess what? His body's on my hands because I can't prove that he fell. And if they want to pin a murder on me saying that I beat him up and punched him and he fell over and hit his head and broke his neck, where's the proof? There's no camera or anything in there. I'm just hit, basically. So whenever I seen that I had a cellie that wasn't able to get up and down off that top bunk and I'm on the bottom bunk, you can have it. Because I am not going to fall victim to that kind of shit. I've seen it happen too many times. Too many times. Somebody falls and hits their head, something like that, knocked out unconscious. You're getting blamed for it almost every single time. That's just the realities of prison and death. It happens in there, it occurs, and when it does, just pray that it don't happen when you are in there with them. Prison Break Raw, uncut, uncensored, no holds barred, non-sugarcoated, non-politically correct, all up in your face, slapping you with that dick of reality, and I'm out.